Hey, Max.
What?
2017 recruits, with the rules the way they are now, is it more difficult? I think it. Personally, I think it is. Is it more difficult to keep a guy the way you want in your program than it used to be? When we got a commit from somebody, we were able to go and sit with them and stay with them. Now they can't. Is that a little bit of a problem?
That's a major problem, Coach. I mean, here's a couple of reasons. One, mainly because of all the, basically the communications out there. If there was another school out there that maybe didn't have him high on the list, let's say he commits to Alabama, and of course that's not really good because Alabama usually keeps most of theirs, but that draws the attention to everybody else, from everybody else, to see how good the kid really is. I think I hated that.
Yeah.
Both when I was at Florida State and at Ole Miss, I hated to get the early commitment. I'd rather have a guy that still made the trips and then, reserve us maybe for last on his official visit trips. But it's hard, particularly when you start down with those 10th and 11th graders. You get them out of the summer camps. You make they make a commitment, or you make the commitment to them. And then all of a sudden, midway their senior year, they're being heavily recruited by half a dozen other people. They decide they want to make some other trips out there. That's the most dangerous type. The ones that said, well, Coach, I'm staying commitment, but I want to take my 5 trips.
Well, the other factor, too, is if they're close by to a university and they can make a lot of unofficial visits. That's a killer for you.
They can do that. Yeah, you can do that. But you know what, Coach? We found in several places, particularly when I was in Tallahassee, it was as hard to keep those local kids there because they had been there so many times.
Sure.
They were excited to get out of town.
Exactly
make other
right.
trips.
Yeah.
Max, this is probably a dumb question that nobody cares about, but I'm interested in it. What's happened to Nebraska? I mean, I remember the day when I was little. Nebraska, I don't know, little, maybe teenage. Nebraska was college football.
Barry. Walk on.
They were. They used to travel with their weight room, and they were tough and good. Does Nebraska? Are they still playing Division I football? What happened to Nebraska?
Well, I think part of it, they went to the Big Ten, and that was an administrative decision at the top. They thought they could do more. The Big 12 kind of fell apart, mainly because of, the Longhorn Network and Texas dominance politically in that conference. And I'd love to see them come back to the Big 12. But guys, every time that there's a change like that or a drop off in programs, we look at Alabama, you can look at Texas, you can look at Southern Cal, Michigan. Normally there's a change at the top with the administrative philosophy. And that trickles down then to the emphasis they put on sports, whether it be basketball or football or whatever the sport may be that has carried your university. There's a change in emphasis there. And they don't put enough emphasis in there. The budget's not big enough to hire great coaches, and your recruiting budget's not good enough to travel. And I don't know that for a fact at Nebraska, but I do get concerned every time I see a program that drops like that. And I would almost bet you if you looked inside, it's that administrative philosophy at the top had a major change.
The difference we have, Barry and Max, is 85% of the presidents say,
yep,
you start making money, we're going to spend it.
Yeah.
The Alabama president who saw what he had Nick Saban for one reason, because he'd been at LSU and been successful. He said, this guy's going to make money, that's spend money to make money. That's the difference.
That's true. That's very true. And it is about the money. Just because a university like that is a nonprofit on paper, you can make contributions to get a tax write-off. I guarantee you they can't lose money at the top as far as administration is concerned. They've got to be a revenue-producing entity within itself. And almost every time that the great athletic programs out there, and that's a huge PR too when you are, because look at all the times you're on national television and you get the exposure around the country. That's why when there's a problem at a university within the athletic department, it garners so much attention.
Yeah. The other thing to answer Barry's question is, and I'll just tell it like it is, they had a lot of Caucasian walk-ons.
Oh, they did at that time. Yeah.
Why can't they can still get those?
Well, see, here's
what
the
they
deal.
had.
I understand the politics in that state, that each county worked out a deal for if there was an outstanding athlete there, they got some financial help to get that kid to Nebraska. Now, of course, those kids now, if they make the roster, they count against you 85, whether they're on scholarship or not. But the fact is, you had to get them there first. and it was almost like a tryout camp before school started in Nebraska, and that's why they ended up with, I think great programs for years. Still, I tell you what, though, guys, you go back and check, their attendance record is still extremely high. I mean, they still sell out because that's about the only thing going in the state of Nebraska, if you don't know the truth.
Well, didn't Osborne run the option? I thought he ran like the triple option.
He ran an option.
That's who he ran it with.
Well, that's my point, though. It's freezing cold in Nebraska. I don't know. Good Lord, it's cold there.
Their stadium's not like the ones in the SEC.
Yeah, but if it's freezing cold plus trying to defend the option is miserable. They need to go back to the triple option.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said about philosophies.
Well, Mike Riley's there. He's a good man.
But here's the thing, Barry, you can't find high school kids that run anymore. That's why everything's going to the free and wide open stuff, because all the high school.
Why can't you run it? Why don't more people run it?
The high school kids don't play that way. You can't get them. They won't come there.
Right.
Well, Georgia Southern's doing pretty good with it.
Oh, congratulations.
Well, but see, they don't. Yeah, but you remember they do it with that Division I AA or Division II kid. You don't see programs out there that go out and recruit those kind of kids. I think it's all part of our society. Our society is not hard-nosed tough anymore, guys. I mean,
I'm surprised you two would be against it. You two are turning to the glitz and glamour now.
No, we're realists, Barry. We see what's going on. You can't win if you can't get to great players, and the great players are not playing that system anymore.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
The quarterbacks, Barry, the running backs, they want to go where they play the way that they think they ought to play.
Exactly right.
The way they played in high school.
Yep. And I think that's where we're going with it. And but it all runs in cycles, guys. It always has.
Yep.
We went from the old straight T to the wing T, and then the I, and then we went back to the 3-back offense with the option there, like you're talking about. Then they started going back to a spread formation. But it all runs in cycles, and the cycles depend on how much it's approved by everybody. It's how much you win with it.
Another thing, Barry, what was the coach's name they fired from LSU?
Started with a P. Pelini, Bo Pelini.
Bo Pelini that went to Nebraska. Yeah,
he was crazy.
Bo Pelini shouldn't have been fired.
Bo Pelini was a nut. Yes, he should have.
Why?
Well,
because of the way he acted.
He should have been fired.
But, Coach, it was a lot to do, I think, with his personality.
Oh, I know. They got Mike Riley. My point in even bringing this out is he got a complete opposite. Mike Riley is a terrific guy, and he is completely 100% personality-wise different from Bo. I don't think Bo should have been fired personally.
Well, I think it was a combination from everything I read and know about up there. It was a combination of way. If you remember, he got on national television and said, if the president didn't like what he do, fire him right there. If you remember that, I mean, that went everywhere. And you may feel that way, but you can't step out and make a threat like that.
So did Nolan Richardson at Arkansas, and they said, okay.
Well, I remember that situation too. I think each one of those circumstances depend on the expectations of where you are and where your program is and what people expect of it from then on. And some coaches get away with, public comments like that, and some can't. Majority of them cannot, I don't believe.
All right, Max, if I ask you this question, do you promise to tell the truth?
No, don't promise it, Max. Be some off-the-wall deal. Don't promise.
I get so tickled when Greg Sankey or any of these people at the SEC, they get up and they jerk their pants up about their probation free, that none of the SEC schools are on probation. Max, how many teams are in this is an easy question. How many teams are in the SEC, Max?
It's 14.
14. How many schools, I'm not talking about level one, how many schools in the SEC are cheating?
Let me tell you what my philosophy is. You've heard me say it before. There's two kinds, the caught and the uncaught. Yeah,
it's called white collar. And
listen, the rule book is, you guys know that. The rule book on recruiting is it's almost a farce. It's just like the state legislature. They don't ever take a law off the books. They just keep adding them to it. Same thing in the NCAA rule book. They don't ever take anything out of the book They just keep adding pages to it. You cannot, and I think I told you the story. When I first went to Ole Miss and I met with Warner Alford, the athletic director over there, this was the first thing. I had to make speeches and write letters to every booster club in the country that supported Ole Miss about the way you can and cannot handle recruits. Because we were being slammed by guys in Dallas and St. Louis and Atlanta about how they were trying to handle recruits to help the recruiting office. You can't do that, but you're still responsible for it.
Well,
I'm just
what Warner wanted is to be sure you had some kind of letter like that in the file. In case
absolutely. Well, he got one, Coach. He almost had a book on me.
Well, I fight with my next door neighbor all the time. He thinks every school is out buying. I mean, he's like giving money. I'm like, look, nobody's paying money to these kids. Now, every once in a while, something may go down, but they think the common fan thinks that you're paying money to everybody. You know how much people talk. I mean, that's not happening.
I think that was a time that was a lot more flagrant than it is now. I'll be honest with you. I do think the rules have tightened up and things are, but there's still some guys that, want to take part in their program. They can't wait to get out and tell all their buddies they helped some kid get to a university, particularly if he's a super player. And they love that. It's that ego thing. And
I've had 15 people call me or tell me, and just seeing them, that they were the first ones to tell me about Keith Askins. Every cotton picking guy. Hey, Coach, remember I called you? Oh yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
All right, Max, I got another question for you. If you go to Cam Newton's father's church,
okay,
all right, and they pass the collection plate,
okay,
and you put 1,000 in there,
okay,
is that cheating?
Sure.
You said what now?
They pass the collection plate.
Yeah,
and you go to church,
$1,000,
and you drop $1,000 in the collection plate.
That's a contribution.
It's a contribution to the church.
Right.
Is that cheating?
Well, no, it's not cheating. I mean, you can't do anything about what the church does with the money.
That's for the church.
You have to put a note on there and say this is not for a pleasure.
This is for the building fund. Go build into that.
We all know all the circumstances. I've read every report out there, and that rule, by the way, has changed now too, if you recall. But the fact is,
whoa! What rule? If your daddy owns a church, you can't give.
The direct contribution. If there's any tie to a direct contribution going to an individual per se, yeah. And as I recall, that when Auburn had the problem down there, they hired a guy from the NCAA office to come down and research it. If you remember, Cam Newton was ruled ineligible one day until the rule was, I think, really looked and exhibited to everybody, and that rule was not enforced at that particular time. And so I understand now you can't make contributions with specifics that you talked about a while ago going to one particular individual.
You're on probation today. You can't practice today. We'll check in the morning.
That's right. We've got to get the rules straight.
So if I pull in a neighborhood and Cam Newton's little sister's out there with a lemonade stand, and I buy a lemonade for $500, is that cheating?
Well, not to me, it's not. I mean, you just do,
For how much lemonade you buy?
It depends on how much you haul off. I can go back and cite you example where family members got scholarships. I got we don't need to get into all that this morning.
I was trying to give them some real radio today.
Don't start that, Barry.
We're trying to.
Go ahead.
Let me just tell you this. When I resigned from Ole Miss in 1991, and I was in Atlanta, we just cranked up a 680 The Fan in Atlanta, I got calls from the NCAA and the SEC once a week for a year trying to say, hey, what were y'all doing over there? And my answer was, I don't know. I wasn't doing anything. I was trying to recruit football players. Of course, eventually, they nailed Billy on some stuff on excessive aid coming from kids out of Arkansas. But that was long after I was gone. But they, once you leave a place, if there's any opportunity for the rule enforcers to try to nail somebody, if they got you on that list, they're going to pursue you. But persistence wins every time. I can promise you that.
Well, we're just not like going on the summer, so I wanted to see what you thought about all that stuff, Max.
Well, look, I'm fortunate enough. I had 3 or 4 really good years. I started out at Troy. We had, in those days, we would transition from NAIA to Division II. We were taking kids. We won a national championship there at Division II in 1968. And people said, well, how'd you get all those kids? Well, the SEC at that time had a rule that they didn't take married kids. Well, we stepped in with the George Wallace administration, and Dr. Ralph Adams built married apartments. We gave the kid a scholarship, gave his wife a job, and half our kids in 1968 started in the SEC the year before. That's how we did it. We had great players. In 5 years there, I didn't sign 2 high school kids. We took transfers and junior college kids. We had 8 or 10 in the NFL at that time.
When you're getting ready to play, we talk about Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going through all this mess. Now, when you get ready to play games in football, one thing that you do is you study the opponent. You decide. That's what Nick Saban does. Southern Cal couldn't beat Nick Saban with a beating machine. They ain't nothing. They'll score 100 points again. But you take Ole Miss. They're fixing to play Florida State. They're fixing to play them in Orlando, which is not good. You can't get down there from Oxford. And the other factor is that when you look at their roster, they've got every offensive player that started last year back. Now, I don't want to mix my Fanny getting beat 2 or 3 touchdowns with the problems I'm having off the field. And I know you need the money, but there's a question in my mind: is that am I better off either making Florida State my second game, where it won't be as great, and playing somebody I can beat, or forgetting them totally?
Well, Coach, you don't want they did that mainly because of the national exposure and the money that'll come from them. That's what they did it for. Because you look at their September schedule, and even without Florida State, they got Georgia, Alabama back to back. I mean, that's going to be a tough go for them.
They'll be beat up by the time they play Alabama.
You know what Ole Miss did over at the Manning Center, don't you? They put them a barber shop in there.
Why was that?
Just so them, guys like to get their hair tight on a Thursday before a Saturday game. They got a barber shop over there now.
That's okay.
No, I think that's a good recruiting tool. Got your barber shop. They got a bunch of chairs in there.
Coach Brewer had somebody cut his hair too. Stuff got out.
So if the recruit's dad cuts hair and he cuts your hair and you tip him $500, no, I'm just kidding. All right, Max, tell us about the websites, Max.
All right, guys. Yeah, we appreciate that. We're moving very quickly to launching our internet radio station. That would be GameDaySportsRadio.com, of which all our websites under that. We'll be doing podcasts and certainly replaying stuff. We picked up the state of Mississippi's high school game of the week and the state of Alabama's high school game of the week will be shown on Friday nights and Saturday mornings there. GameDayBama.com, GameDayAL.com, GameDayMiss.com is all very, very active. We're now on track right now for the month of June to do about 35,000 hits on our website. So we're growing at a pretty fast rate, but it's very controllable. I just got a chance to move our guy. We opened an office in Oxford this past weekend. The guy that does all the tech stuff for us, I got him moved from Little Rock into Oxford. So we're going full speed, guys, with this thing, and we're having fun with it right now.
Appreciate it, Max. I won't ask you tough questions on Thursday.
Well, I'll be okay. Just line them up.
Thanks,
One
buddy.
thing about it, you'll find out I won't dodge them. I promise you.
Thanks, Max.
See you guys.